Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Stephanie and I'd like to show you how to make this, or actually make this bracelet with you today. It's a combination of peyote on the top and the bottom, and in the center we've square stitched some crystals on. So what I've used here are O beads, 6 O seed beads, and they're Miyuki. I've used a 4mm crystal. This is a bicone, a Swarovski, and I've used some seed beads, size 11/0 seed beads. Now how I've clasped it is I've used a 2-strand box clasp, and I've sewed the clasp right onto the first row, which I love doing if I'm going to add a clasp. That way it's already done. So here it is closed. There we go. So that's how it looks. It's really kind of cool. I think it's really nice. I'm looking forward to spring. Put it on the wrist. It's a very weighty bracelet. It's got lots of, it's very supple. It's very, it molds to anything you put it on. So when you look at it as you're making it, you'll say, oh, this looks a little crooked. This bead, you know, you can see a little more space here or whatever. Put it on your wrist. And I pull this up a little bit. And look how it molds to your wrist. It's amazing how everything falls right into place. You can actually wrap it around a finger. This is how supple and how flexible this bracelet is with these big beads. So I think this is a beginner project. I think anybody can do it. You just have to watch your tension a little bit and just go slow and just do it row at a time and not, and just, take your time. It's going to be rather quick because look at the size seed beads we're using. So once you make one and you learn the stitch, you'll be able to just, you'll turn them out like crazy for gifts, or, if you like it, to sell. It's a great bracelet to sell because it's nice and strong, and it's, it's very summery. So, and it's made with fireline. So look, I mean, fireline is amazing. Even though we've got some thread showing here and at the bottom, this stuff catches trout and other fish. So this is strong. I mean, this stuff, you can really pull this, and I'm not kidding around here. I'm really pulling that. So it still conforms beautifully to the wrist. Now if I take a scissor to it, of course it's going to come apart, but not that easily because there's square stitch in the middle, and that's, it takes a while to get the square stitch out. But I'm just saying that if you were fishing and using fishing line and you cut it with a scissor, it would break. It would cut also. But as far as just wear and tear, this is a strong bracelet. Okay, so we're going to use a size 10 beading needle. We've got a couple of arm spans of 8-pound fireline. Okay. I've got a little less just so I can manage it in the camera. It's my first video, so I don't want, thread going everywhere. I have enough, things to worry about with my blurry camera, which I apologize in advance for. So leave enough thread at the end of your project so that if you don't have this clasp, I'll put my needle down, you can use another clasp. You have a great opportunity here where this clasp is to, let's see if I can, bend it over. Okay, here we go. To put some beads here and then make a toggle at the other end, and that would look beautiful. I'll show you that on a bracelet. It's not the same bracelet, but you could very well do some sort of beaded end and then make your own little peyote toggle, which we will do together. It's very easy, and it looks so pretty because it becomes, I'm sorry about the shadow, it becomes part of the project. You see? This is actually a netted project, which I hope we'll do together. So you can do that at the ends. Or you can put, here's another different project, but you can put a button on the end, which would look really pretty. And maybe do a peyote loop at the end. So there are many, many different options for closures here. So you can find a 2-strand clasp, or just leave it and don't put the clasp on, and you'll work on a closure. So why don't you get your materials together and we'll get started. Okay, So we've got our materials. And what I've done here is I've put on my needle an O, a 6/0, an O, and a 6/0. That's what you should have. You can just leave them there. I've taken my box clasp apart just for the moment, just to show you. Here's the tongue, here's the box. I'm going to put it together. It's going to click shut. I'm going to take my needle with my beads on it, and I'm going to go through that first hanging jump ring, so you can see that. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to take full advantage of that jump ring, and I'm going to use it to sew my clasp on. Now if you do not have these jump rings on your clasp, then put some on. If you have some, just put some on. Put one on and put, on each of the 4 holes. And if you don't want to use this, then just put the beads on as I put them on and don't put the clasp on. So I'm going to take my needle. I went through the first ring. I'm going to pull. And this is what I have. So I've got the O and the stop beads on the bottom. So I've got the a little clumsy at first. I've got the O, the 6/0, the O, the 6/0. I've gone through the first hanging jump ring on my clasp. Now I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a 4mm crystal, and an 11/0. So this is what you should have on your needle. And I'm going to go through the second jump ring that's hanging from my clasp. So get it in position, go through like that. So here's the second jump ring. I'm going to pull my needle through. Okay, there you go. So in between the 2 jump rings, I've got an 11/0, a crystal, and an 11/0. So now I'm going to put on my needle, 6/0, an O bead, a 6/0, and another O bead. Okay, so we've got a 6/0, an O, a 6/0, and an O. I'm going to drop those down. So I'm going to hold my project and just pull those down. Okay, so turn it around. This is what you have for your first row. I'll go through it one more time. We've got an O, a 6/0, an O, a 6/0. We've gone through the ring. We've put on an 11/0, a 4mm, an 11/0. We've gone through the second ring, and then we've added a 6/0, an O, a 6/0, and an O. Now if you don't put the clasp on, you'll just have those beads at the end of your stop bead. Now I'm on the front side of my clasp, so the top is here and my stop bead is at the bottom. I'm going to take my project, just going to turn it around to the back. So if you have a clasp on, you'll know, because you'll know what the back is. And you know what the back is because your stop bead will be up at the top here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the peyote. So I'm going to take an O bead and a 6/0. I'm going to skip the first 2 beads, the O and the 6/0, and I'm going to go through the second O and 6/0. Now if you drop it, don't worry about it. Just pull and it will all pull together. It's good that I do this so that you get an idea of what it's going to look like if you drop it. So if you drop it, just pull. Make sure you get your peyote in line. So in peyote, you should have the 2 beads at the bottom should be sitting next to each other, like so. Don't worry about the O beads on the bottom. We'll deal with them later. So that's what you're coming out of. Now on this first pass, this is going to call the pass through. We're going to go through the jump ring, the 11/0, the 4mm, the 11/0, And if you can get through the jump ring, if you can't get through it, just pull. You're just passing through at this point. You're not adding any beads, but just make sure you make it through that second jump ring. Okay, we'll play with that in a bit. So then finish your peyote by taking a 6-0 and an O, and skipping these two and go up the last two and pull. So that's, you've gotten your first row done. So I'm going to fix my peyote down here a little bit so that my beads are sitting next to each other. Make sure they're sitting next to each other on top. So that's what you have. So now I'm going to turn it around. So I've passed through the original beads that I put on the back. So now we're going to do our peyote, an O and a 6-0. We're going to go up just through the sticking out O and 6-0. And we're going to pull. So there you go. Now we're going to do a square stitch. Okay, so every other row in the center, right here, we're going to either pass through, which we've done once, and then on the top, stop beads on the bottom, or your clasp is on the top, or both. I'm going to square stitch these 3 center beads. So I'm going to take an 11-0, a 4mm crystal, and an 11-0. Okay, and I'm going to come, I'm not going to go through the ring, I'm just going to come down through the 11-0, the 4mm and the 11-0, not the ring. Okay, like so. I'm going to pull that down, so this is going to be the first half of my square stitch, and what that does is it sort of puts those next to each other, and then I'm going to go up the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. So you see I'm going to do that. So there's finishing my square stitch, and I'm going to pull. Okay. Now I'm going to do my peyote, so I'm going to take a 6-0 and an O, and I'm going to peyote up through the sticking out 6-0 and the O, and pull. Don't worry about the O beads, and this is what you should have. So you get the idea? We've got peyote, peyote, and in the middle we're either going to pass through or we're going to do a square stitch. So every other row. So, you know how I orient it is when I'm on the top of my clasp, or my stop bead is down at the bottom, I'm going to square stitch. I'm going to turn it over, and because I'm on the back, or my stop bead is up at the top, it's going to be a pass through, but only through the center beads. So I'm going to peyote the first stitch. I'm going to go up the O and the 6-0. I'm going to pass through, without any extra beads, the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. And I'm going to pull. Holding your thumb on the project helps. It keeps it from flopping all over the place. But, you know, just hold it however it's comfortable for you. So this was my pass-through round. So now I have to finish my peyote. So I have a 6-0 and an O. I'm going to go up the sticking out 6-0 and the O. My tail, give it a little tug, press on it a little bit. That's what I have. So now I'm going to take my project, I'm going to turn it around, move my tail out of the way, and this is what you have. Okay, so let's do it again. It's a little wonky at first, but it will straighten out. So I have an O and a 6-0. I'm going to go up the sticking out O and 6O. I'm going to pull. Just going to, I've got my tail caught, so I'm just going to pull that. There we go. So I'm going up, I'm on the right side, so this is going to be a square stitch. So I'm going to take an 11-0, a crystal, and an 11-0, and I'm going to square stitch, which means going down through the previous 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0, like so. It's kind of like a mess, but you'll get it. When you do it, you'll see it's not really hard. Okay, pull it through, puts it next to it, and then you're going to go up through the 11-0, which I'm having a little trouble with at the moment. Come on, you. Yeah, 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. I'm a little clumsy at the moment. My camera setup is a little messed up right now. So there we go. When you're doing this without a camera in front of you, it will be much easier. The only reason it's difficult with this camera is that at the moment I have my camera in my desk drawer on the lowest tripod level so that I can film so that you can follow my hands easily rather than mirroring. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll keep working at it until we get it right. Or I'll keep working at it until I get it right. So now after I've done my square stitch, I'm going to go up, I do my peyote. So I've got a 6-0 and an O. And I'm going to peyote through the last 6-0 and the O. So you get the idea? See how it's starting to come together? Let's go on the other side. This is the pass-through side. It's the back. So I'm going to take an O, and this little 6-0 that's bugging me over there. I'm going to go through the O and the 6-0, the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. See how I've got it there? I'm going to pull. I'm holding my thumb on it. I know those beads are going to go. That's the pass-through round. So we put on the peyote, and then we passed through the center beads without any beads. But then we have to finish putting on the peyote. Don't forget to finish putting on the last peyote stitch, otherwise you're going to mess up. Done that? So I thought I'd just say that just in case, because sometimes you think, oh, I'm just going to pass through the next group. But no, your only pass through is going to be through these center beads. And that's going to be every other row. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to just wiggle it. Now my tension at the moment is very loose, and it's okay. Just sort of keep it medium tension. Mine's a little loose, but the bracelet is so supple and so flexible that it just conforms to you. The beads just sort of fall in place. They're almost like, it's almost like an abacus. You can roll them around. They're a lot of fun. So let's do one more row. We have an O, a 6-0. We're going to go up through the sticking out O and 6-0. I'm going to bring those through. Now we're going to do our square stitch because I'm on the right side. My stop bead's down here. Top of my clasp is here. I'm going to take an 11-0, a crystal, an 11-0. I'm going to find my way into that 11-0, the crystal, and the 11-0. Now, because this 6-0s and the 11-0s are right together, the 11-0 wants to sort of go up into the crystal. Now, you can fix that by either maybe using a 10-0, or, I don't, it comes out when you wear it, because it's so supple that, you don't see it, as I showed you before. The beads sort of just go into place when they go on your wrist. So it's kind of fun that way. So then go back up the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. Okay, just those three, doing our square stitch. And if it racks out like that a little bit and the thread pulls, pull it in. towards where the thread's coming from. See how it kind of pulls itself together? So then we're going to take the 6-0. I like that one. Let's see, the 6-0 and an O, and we're going to go through the last 6-0 and O. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, starting to come together. Now I like to finish a round, so it's a round. It's a 2-row round because you're going to square stitch, then you're going to pass through. So if I'm going to stop, I'm going to stop on this last row, the pass through. Kind of, just ends it for me. So here we go. We've got our 6-0 and our O. We're going to go through the O, the 6-0, the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0, just those, come through. So we've passed through on this side, and I'm going to add my 6-0 and my O. So the last sticking out 6-0 and O. Now I'm going to pull. Okay, I'm going to turn it over. Now I'm on the right side, and you kind of get the idea of how this is going. Don't worry about it if it looks a little uneven at first. It just takes it will be gorgeous. You see, just even laying it on the back of my hands, the beads sort of fall into place. So I think at this point you can continue on by yourself for a little while. I'll do some off camera, and I'll come back in a little bit, and we'll see how things are going. Okay, we're back, and I find I've done a little bit. Pull these a little further in, and I see that I am running out of thread because I started with a shorter span of thread. So let's add on some thread. So here's where I am. I'm going to add it on the back, the pass-through side. So I'm just going to take the needle I was using and put it down for a moment. I've threaded a new needle with some fireline. Okay. I'm going to pick up my project, and let's see, I'm going to go through, I'm not going to go through the bottom, I'm just going to go through the second O bead of the second row later, back. I'm going to go up through the crystals, up through the O bead, the 6-0 and the O bead, and I'm going to pull through. So I'm just sort of snaking my way through. I'll leave a small tail because we're not going to really need a big tail. It's going to all, with peyote, with peyote, with these big beads, you can tie some knots. But generally with peyote, it's such a tight weave that you don't have to. So anyway, we're going to go down the second. Actually, let's say, because we've come out there, we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go back down these two. See how the thread kind of sucks up in between there. I'm going to go down the center beads and through the O bead. Pull. Got a lot of thread on my needle now, so it's a little clumsy, but it won't be when you do it. And I'm working on a knot here too, so let me see if I can stop it before it becomes a knot. Yes, okay, so there we go. I'm going to go down those beads. I'm going to go down, let's see, I'm going to go up the next O and the 6-0. Now I'm just snaking around this. I didn't really plan this, so I'm going to go back up. This one may not be the best way of tying on. I mean, just snake through. Just put your thread on and try and snake through some of the beads so that it attaches it in a way that it's not going to come apart. So we're really doing a lot of snaking around. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to come out of the 11-0. So I'm making sure you can see that. This is my old thread. Now I'm going to come down here, come across, and I'm going to come out the bottom. So whichever way gets you to the bottom would be a good way to tie on some thread. You can do it the way I did it. You can do it the way you're used to doing it. But just snake through a few previous rows and just make sure it's coming out the same bead as the thread that you're going to tie off. So here we are. We have our new thread on. This is our new tail. So we've got lots of little threads hanging down, but we know where we're going from here. So we're going to take an O bead and a 6-0, and this is the pass-through row. So we're going to go up, pass through the 3 beads in the middle, pull, like so. Move that out of the way. We're going to take a 6-0 and an O, and we're going to go up through the next sticking out O and 6-0. So here you have it. So I'm going to turn it around. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to sew in a few of my ends, not this of course, but the 2 ends, but my thread's on now, so I'm ready to continue. So continue on. Oops, sorry about that. Continue on until you get the size of your wrist minus 1/2 inch, because this clasp is going to put on a 1/2 inch, or minus whatever clasp you're going to use. You can just put it on your wrist as you go along to see how much you're going to need. I know that for my wrist, sorry about that, that's a little messy. I know for my wrist, the bead portion of my bracelet needs to be 6 inches, and then the 1/2 inch for the clasp makes it perfect for me. It's slightly snug, but I believe that fireline, while it doesn't stretch, it gets softer, and when something gets softer, it opens up a little more. So if it's slightly snug, then it will, as long as you can close it, it will stretch a little bit or soften, and then then kind of mold itself to your wrist. So tie in your threads, the one that you put on and the second tail, and continue working on your bracelet. Work until you get to your last pass through, and don't do that. So do a square stitch on the front and then turn it over and wait, and we'll do the last pass together because we're going to add the second half of the clasp at that point. Okay, see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. So I've got my 6 inches from bead end to bead end. I'm on the back of my project where I'm going to do the pass through, but I haven't done that yet. So right now I'm going to take the box end and hold it and pull out the tongue of my clasp. So we're going to put that one on now. So the box end is on the back. This is the front. You want the tongue end to be on the back. So face down, just to show you. So here on the other bracelet, face down, and when you turn it around, they're both face up. Okay? So we're going to start out with our, excuse my hand, usual peyote. We're going to take an O bead and a 6-0. We're going to go through the O bead and the 6-0 on the bracelet, pull. Okay. Then we're going to take the clasp, and the little hanging jump rings are right there. I'm going to go through the first one. Then I'm going to pass through the 11-0, the 4mm, and and the 11-0. Okay, put my needle down for a second. I'm going to pull this through carefully because I don't want it to twist around too much. I'm going to make sure it stays on the back. So there you go. So if you notice, there it is, right in between the 6-0 and the 11-0. Okay, so my thread is coming out of the top 11-0. I'm going to go to the other side of my clasp, straighten it out. Make sure you're going through just like this. Okay, put your needle through. So you're just going through that ring at this point. So what you're doing is you're setting the ring, this clasp end, in between the 6-0 and the 11-0, and the 11-0 and the 6-0. Now that we have that on, we're going to finish our peyote. Well, we're not going to finish our peyote. We're not going to add any more beads. We are going to pass through the 4 beads, the next 4 last beads. So we're going to pass through the 6-0 and the 11-0. I just do these 2 at a time because I just want to make sure the clasp is sitting straight. That looks pretty perfect. And then go through the 6-0 and the 11-0 on top. Okay, I hope you saw that clearly enough. So this is what you have. So it sort of straightens these out a little bit. Peyote it's sort of an every other stitch, so like bricks. So it's not going to be perfectly straight across, but you're not going to see that. Actually, it's kind of pretty. You know, it's part of the design. So it doesn't bother me at all. So there you go. You've got your clasp on. So now we're going to, I'm going to turn it around. And we have these O beads that haven't been tacked down yet. So you can either take a few seed beads, like this one, and just, let's put that right there for a second, and put them over this bead, put them on, and then go through this bead, and then go all the way to the end, turn around, put 3 on again, and go around again. I like this, but it tends to, the seed beads tend to drop a bit, and you play with them all the time. It looks pretty, and after a while it sits straight, but I like it. I'll show you without. So here's one that doesn't have any seed beads on the top, and I like that better. So that's how I'm going to do mine. You know, you can do yours any way you want to. I'm just going to show you how to get this clasp on. So I'm going to move that O bead a little bit. I'm going to go through the 6-0, the O, the 6-0, the ring, and if you can get it, the 11-0, the 4mm, the 11-0, and the ring. Okay, so I'm not going to get it all the way through. I'd rather just do it a little at a time. It would have been kind of cool to get it all the way through, but I'd rather just do it a little at a time and make sure I don't mess it up. Okay, so I've gone through the 11-0, I'm going through the 4mm, I'm going through the other 11-0, pull that through. Then I'm going to go through my clasp and the 4 beads on the end. Okay, so let's see, did we get that through? Yes. So you see how it's sitting? It's sitting nicely in between the beads, which is what you want. It makes it nice and strong. It's on thread, but it's also, the thread isn't being rubbed. It's really not rubbing against the thread. You've got those beads in between, so it's nice and sturdy. And this bead is tacked down, so I'm going to turn it over. Okay, on this side, and I'm going to tack down this bead, this O bead. Now, again, if you want, you can do the 3 seed beads, but I'm just going to tack it down. So I'm going to push it out of the way for a second, and then I'm going to go through the 6-0, the O, the 6-0. I'm going to go through the first ring of the clasp, so that's going to tack that down. I'm going to pass through the 11-0, the 4mm, and the 11-0. I can't get through my clasp at this point, so I'm just going to pull that. It's okay, you don't have to do it in one pass. This is a little tight at this point. Then I'm going to go through the ring and the 6-0 and the O, and then the 6-0 and the O at the end. So as far as I'm concerned, you really don't have to do any more. If you like to, you could come around, go back through the clasp, and you can reinforce it again. But instead, I'm going to come down these two. It's the only time I'm going to add another thread on the top. And I'm going to go down the O bead, the 6-0, the 3 middle beads. I'm going to come up. Make sure I have, yes. Okay, I'm going to come up the next row, like so. And when I do this, watch the thread. It's just going to suck up in between the beads. You're not going to see it. So I'm sort of weaving around a little bit just to reinforce the bracelet. Now, if you'd like to, you can just keep going to, if you have a lot of thread left on your needle, you can reinforce all the way down to the end of the bracelet if you want to. I'm going to stop it. See how it sucks up in there? Okay. So at this, but you watch your tension because you want this thing loose and you want it, very flexible. So don't tighten it too much. So at this point, I'm just going to go down that last O. I'm going to grab a thread. There are a million threads there. I'm going to give myself a little half hitch knot right there. And then just because it, maybe you don't want to just end it right there where the knot is, go up the next row, like so. How's the back? Back looks good. And at this point, I'm going to end my project. So I'm going to, you keep going. So if I was going to keep going, I would just make sure I stay in between the 6-0s and the O's, and I just keep going up and down and up and down and up and down, and go as far as you want. Do the same thing to the other side. I've already done that on the other side, and we have a bracelet. So let's take a look and see how this bracelet, first of all, see how it closes. It should just slip right in. There you go. That's how it looks when it's closed. Let's open it. Let's see it on the wrist. Looks pretty good. Let me close it. I'm just going to come over and close it off camera because it's all bracelets are hard to close, or you hold them against your body when you close them or whatever. So okay, so here it is on the wrist. Actually, this one fits me perfectly. Sometimes they come out a little too tight. This is a perfect fit. It will probably loosen up a little bit. So there it is with the clasp in the front. Turn it around, and there it is with the clasp. I'm sorry about the shadows. Let me see if I can get my light here better. Oh, there we go. There it is with the clasp. With the clasp on the bottom. So pretty nice. Nice and comfortable. Very summery. I just love the idea of the coolness against your wrist. You can do a lot of things with this bracelet. What if you made another row of peyote? Or what if you, here we'll look at this one a little bit. What if you put a larger bead in the middle? Or you decided to sort of make waves with it. You could, put some beads on, put more beads here, smaller, larger. There's so many, this is just very basic. There's so many things you can do with this. You can change the O beads, you can leave the O beads out, you can make it wider, you can make it narrower. You can use different size beads. Just make sure the proportion is good. This is just the beginning. Maybe we'll play with it a little bit and do some other things with it, but I think it's a great way to start out learning how to combine two stitches, and I think it does well. It requires a little bit of concentration because it's very repetitive, and a little bit of holding your tension right, which is all a good thing, because you're going to need that for future projects. Okay, so there we go. There's our bracelet. There's our bracelet. And I want to thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I would love lots and lots of constructive criticism, because this is my first video and I want you to watch more videos. So I'm really love the idea. I really love the idea of the comments, and even if it's, you have things to say that I need to change, need to do, I am open to doing anything to make these videos enjoyable for you to watch and easy for you to create, and to maybe spark some creativity, and maybe even help me a little bit. I don't know what to name this bracelet. Any ideas? I just don't know. I have no idea what to name it. So I think it could use a name. I think every piece of jewelry needs a name. So maybe you could in the comments section you could leave me some names, and I'll credit you for the name. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much, and I hope I see you again soon. Bye-bye.